So my questions are for the Sex Discrimination Commissioner. Thank you. So my questions are relating to the United Nations office holder that you sought to block. Do you see that as a function of your role as Commissioner here in Australia?
Senator, my role is as the Sex Discrimination Commissioner to advocate for gender equality and also for the rights of LGBTQI+ community. My role in relation to the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women is to observe what work she does. I think what you're referring to is me seeking advice from the Chief Executive about her appointment.
That's correct. So you do see that as your role as the Sex Discrimination Commissioner?
Senator, my role is to seek advice from the Chief Executive if I'm unclear about a particular aspect and about her appointment or reappointment. My greater role, as I just referred to, is to advocate for gender equality within Australia and also for the rights of the LGBTQI+ community.
Okay. And I would put to you that it would be inappropriate for a Sex Discrimination Commissioner to interfere in UN appointments and not within your remit. So you were basically saying it is within your remit and you don't agree with that?
Senator, I refer to my previous answer.
Okay. At a previous Senate estimates hearing, you stated that you didn't understand the term biological man. You've now had some time to look at that. Do you now have a definition for biological man? What's your understanding of it?
Senator, I'm not a medical expert. I'm a human rights advocate. As I've just said, I advocate for gender equality and for the rights of LGBTQI+ people. That's my role under the Sex Discrimination Act.
Do you accept that there's a clear criteria that exists to distinguish between male and female?
The Sex Discrimination Act does not define man or woman. It has an inclusive definition of women that includes all women, so that is First Nations women, women from culturally and racially marginalised backgrounds, trans women, lesbians, women with disability.
So how would you define a man?
It's not defined under the Sex Discrimination Act, and my role, as I've said, is to uphold gender equality under that Act.
So you can talk about what a woman is and what do you think a man is?
Senator, all the same definitions that I've just given in relation to women. So First Nations men, men with disability, culturally, racially marginalised men, and gay men and trans men.
Okay. Do you recognise that there are biological men and women?
As I said previously, Senator, I'm not a medical expert. My role is to uphold...
So you think you have to be a medical expert to be able to recognise whether there's a difference between a biological man and woman? Is that what you're saying? So only medical experts can...
As I said, my role is to uphold the Sex Discrimination Act. It's not defined what a man is and what a woman is within the Sex Discrimination Act.
Okay. Do you consider that a person can change their sex?
Under the Sex Discrimination Act, it makes it unlawful to discriminate on the basis of gender identity, on intersex status, and also on sexual orientation.
So I haven't asked that.
Anticipates.
I've asked sex. So that's very tight. Do you consider that a person can change their sex? I'm not talking about gender.
Correct. The gender identity?
No, I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about sex. Do you not see that there's a difference between those two?
So under the Sex Discrimination Act, it's not defined what gender identity is, or under the Sex Discrimination Act, what sex is. So that's the guiding legislation for the human rights implementation within Australia.
So I guess, so do you consider that a person can change their sex, yes or no?
Under each state and territory, there is legislation which enables someone to change their sex on their birth certificate or on any legal document. So under state and territory legislation, they can change their documentation which recognises that they have changed their sex.
So you consider a person can change their sex?
Under state and territory legislation, people are able to change their documentation so that their sex marker is different from what it was as assigned at birth.
So which state and territories are you referring to?
All states and territories throughout Australia.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that the Sex Discrimination Act was first enacted primarily to deliver, as far as practical, substantive equality between men and women, as those terms have been traditionally understood?
The Sex Discrimination Act was enacted to give effect to the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and the aim of that convention is for substantive equality between men and women.
Can I ask how you, as Commissioner, can advocate and stand up for the equality of women if, under your own evidence here today, anyone can be a woman? So how do you protect and advocate for what you can't define?
My role is to advocate for gender equality, as I have been doing over the last 2 years, holding consultations around women's experience of workplace sexual harassment, advocating around domestic and family violence, advocating around sexual violence. That is how I advocate for women.
Do you, and I guess your definition of a woman there though, is anybody can be a woman. So if anyone can be a woman, how are you advocating for a group if you can't actually define who they are and they could be anyone?
I refer to my previous answers, Chair.
Okay. So do you think then if all men can be women and all women can be men, it's completely interchangeable and fluid, does sex discrimination exist?
Sorry, Senator, I'm just going to suggest that I don't think I heard the Commissioner express her personal views on this, in relation to your questions. I think she's outlined some responsibilities under that are her responsibility. So I would just suggest that you not verbal the Commissioner in terms of what it is that she's said here today. Okay. I haven't heard her give that evidence today. Okay,
so if the Act doesn't define using biological sex, and so men can be women and vice versa, does sex discrimination exist?
We know that sex discrimination is an ongoing and serious issue within our community, as evidenced by the high rates of domestic and family violence. We know that one woman dies every 8 days in Australia currently. So that is an expression of sex discrimination throughout our community, as is the experience of 1 in 3 workers of workplace sexual harassment, as is the experience of sexual violence across our community. So absolutely, sex discrimination exists in our community, and that's why the work that I do and that the work that the Commission does is particularly important.
Can I ask, based on the Sex Discrimination Act and the definitions that you've given, how do you know that they're women that are dying?
The statistics that are collected by a range of agencies, including the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Each state and territory also has a body that collects statistics, and they are the organisations which would define the gender of the person that they're collecting statistics on.